Well, I would like to kick off now that we have a good constituency who's joined. Um, Great. So welcome everybody today. I'm really excited because I'm going to confirm that it's all students today, students and Raphael and Linda. Oh, I see one. Okay, so I see a couple people from CMC, which is also great. Welcome. Welcome, Gina. Welcome, Sandy. I just wanted to note, as I've been chatting with a few of you, I am really excited that Harry and I are involved in the MSFE program because one of our primary goals outside of the curricular efforts of the program is to bring your alumni community closer to you so that career paths, career conversations, experiential conversations, talking about opportunities, things you wish you had done in the program, things you wish you had done outside of the program, that those conversations don't just happen between yourselves and faculty and administrators, but that you really start to connect with the people who've been in your shoes and who are now in the professional world full time. So this is our first alumni panel, and it's a really nice opportunity for me to also meet those of you who graduated from the program. And I have with me today, Linda Yang and Rafael Ferreira. And I believe you're both class of 19, is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So you have a few people who are out there in the real world, but you're not too far behind their footsteps. And what I'm going to do today, and again, everybody, we are doing lunchtime programming, and I don't mind, and neither do the panelists if you are eating your lunch. That is fully expected given that we take up your lunchtime with our programming. But I'm going to structure this panel in a way that's pretty free-flowing because it's really meant for a conversation between Raphael, Linda, and all of you as students. So I have a few questions prepared to kick it off. We'll talk or present essentially for about 30 minutes, and then the rest of it should be Q&A. And so you guys think of questions you'd like to ask. You're welcome to write them in the chat function or to unmute yourself at the time at which I open it to Q&A. So I'm really, again, thankful that Linda and Rafa have been patient with my schedule and have also dedicated their time today. So first off, I would really just like Rafa and Linda to give maybe a 3 to 5 minute background of who they are. Because as I said to both of them earlier, they are unique individuals. They have been in your shoes in the MSFE program, but that has just been one component of their personal and professional development. Everyone's story, everyone's path is different. There's no right or wrong way to go through the program or after the program. And I've selected 2 people who represent different paths in different areas of interest, one tech and one capital markets. And so hopefully you'll get an interesting and balanced perspective, unique perspective on the paths that each of Linda and Raphael have gone through. So why don't we start? Raphael, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Thanks, Melina, for the invitation. Thanks, everyone, for attending here. See some familiar faces, too. See Sandy is here. Yeah, from career management. So, guys, my name is Raphael. As Melina mentioned, I graduated in 19. I was the same class as Linda's. I'm from Brazil originally. I did my undergrad back in Brazil in computer engineering. And after I graduated in 2016, I worked in an investment bank in Brazil as a software engineer. And I kind of got to know finance like that at work. And I really enjoyed the experience. And I decided to, learn a little bit more about that, learn how I could learn more about that. And then when I started, digging, I decided to apply for master's programs in the US. And this program specifically really got my attention because this program is very unique, right? The MSFE is very unique in many, many ways, as you all know or will get to know over time, but especially the PhD intersection is something very great, very unique. It's hard to find other institutions, especially other nice institutions like Columbia. So yeah, so I applied to this program, and maybe one or two others that were similar. When I got admitted to this program, just withdrew my application from others and just came. Yeah, and then I've been to the US since 2017 when I started. During the MSFE, I did an internship at Morgan Stanley, so I can talk more about that later if you guys want to. And I graduated and I came to Google to work with machine learning. So I got the offer in July 19, and I'm here ever since. Yeah, and I'm happy to discuss my experiences and whatever you guys want to know.
Thank you so much, Raphael. And I'll pass that over to Linda. Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Melina. And it's so happy to be here. So my name is Linda Yan. I'm originally from China. I actually didn't have any full-time work experience before I applied for this job. Before I applied for this program, the main reason that I applied for it is when I was in my senior, I was quite not sure what to do yet. So I applied for the master program. I wanted to explore more career opportunities. And similar to Raphael, the reason I'm applying for this program is it's very unique. Like it provides me PhD courses, which I didn't take when I was in college. So I think it's a good opportunity for me to explore, to figure out whether I like to in the academic field. Also, it has many provided us opportunities in learning the MBA courses. So that provide me more hands-on career-related experiences. So during my master program, I found myself more interested in the primary market, in the fundamental finance sector. And I originally, at first, I planned to go back to China after this program. So I finished my summer internship in a private equity fund in China during the summer of 2018. And I did the cross-border in the cross-border balance team. And I was quite fortunate enough because that fund also has a New York office, and my work was recognized by my VP, and she has good connection to the colleagues in the New York office. So when I came back to the New York, she recommended me to be as the spring intern in their New York office, which I think is quite helpful for me to find my full-time job there after my graduation. So during my last semester, because of some private reasons, I made up my mind to find a job here in the States. And to be honest, it's quite low. It's quite late for you to trying to find a job in the batch bracket because everyone, like every bank, they prefer hiring the associates from their summer interns. So it was quite struggling, but I just didn't give up. I like constantly send LinkedIn messages to the alumni and to the people they work in the companies I'm interested in. And finally, I was very fortunate enough to get a job and work as the associate vice president at Citi Capital Markets team. So later on, I'll talk more about my daily job. And if you didn't find a summer internship in your dream company, how would you do in your last semester? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That's great. And it sounds to me like you'd had a pretty accelerated jump from going undergrad, master's, and into an AVP position at Citi, which is kind of like similar to a vice president position in an investment bank. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the associate vice president position is kind of like the associate
Okay.
in Citi. Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's very interesting for me to learn about both of you as well. And likewise, for me to learn about all of you as students as you go through the program, because I have a lot of institutional background and networks. And so every time one of you shares, it kind of sparks recognition back in my own path and people who I know and professionals who would be interesting for you all to connect with. So just a side note, please don't ever hesitate to share with me what you're interested in, et cetera. So Linda and Rafa, I wanted to ask, I don't want to focus too much on the MSFE program. So I'm really only going to ask one question about your experience in the MSFE program, because I'd like to focus this more on career paths. But in reality, students do want to know, especially those starting out, what to do to optimize and maximize their curricular and academic experience in the MSFE program so that they are in a position that they are well equipped to interview for the areas that they're interested in. And so to that effect, are there any suggestions or any courses or any approaches to the MSFE program that you would like to share with the current students?
Yeah, cool. It's a great question. Look, the thing about the MSFE, in my opinion, is that there are so many different possibilities from the program. The program is so like comprehensive, and it's so mathematical and so quantitative that, you know, you can choose like a bunch of different career paths. I think most people, at least in my cohort, were more interested in like quantitative finance. But the reality is that at the end of the day, we are like solving real world problems with mathematics and programming, or, you know, with our finance knowledge. So it's really about problem solving, right? My approach to the MSFE is that I think we should not, I mean, my advice is like, don't settle on classes only, you know, like the program is so like much more than just the class. The classes are amazing. It's like PhD level, you know, world class level classes. But, you know, we have a bunch of different opportunities at Columbia. Like you can be research assistants, you can be teaching assistants, you can do, you know, internships during the semesters. Oh my God, there's so many. I had friends that worked with PhDs and publishing papers, had friends that took classes in other departments, like in computer science departments or the financial engineering department. So at the end of the day, there's so much, like it's such a rich program, and just take like whatever you like and, you know, search for what can you do, you know, to enhance your experience other than just like taking classes and focusing on exams, right? And obviously, ultimately, there is the whole Columbia network, which is also amazing. So for instance, like myself, I'm Brazilian, and I was able to very quickly connect to the Brazilian MBAs. So for instance, I spent one Thanksgiving together with the Brazilian MBAs. It was an amazing experience. Was, you know, one of them cooked really well. We all went to this person's place, and right now they're all in the finance industry, you know, with very nice jobs in Latin America, in Brazil, in the US, and the network just remains. So yeah, so that's my advice. Like the program offers a lot and should definitely try to take advantage of everything.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot to take advantage of. I mean, that's great. But I would echo that don't forget that this is something that you are doing to further yourself professionally, not just intellectually. And so make time to network amongst yourselves. You are each other's network for the future, and the future is long. And so you may be in touch with each other 5 years, 10 years out. So please do take time to get to know one another. At this point in time, it's socially, it's academically, it's as teammates, but it will be as professionals, referring deals to each other, hiring one another, giving recommendations on who might be an interesting addition to a team, et cetera. And that really is something I didn't think about during my MBA experience at Columbia Business School as much. And in the real world, as time plays out, I'm 10 years out, it's something that becomes super valuable. So do try and expand your network by getting to know one another and also getting integrated into some of the affinity and professional groups at the business school. Linda, so what words of advice would you have for the students in terms of how to maximize their MSFE experience?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I totally agree with Rafael. Like the program is just opens many endless opportunities. And one of the advice I want to give the students is don't set limitations. And I know that for many of you, the first semester, we kind of have the same courses, the same PhD courses. And to be honest, I found myself not that I can finish those PhD courses, but I found my true interest, my true passion doesn't lie in the academic field. So I talked to Michael, who was our director then at the time. I talked to him that my concerns, and if I really want to pursue in fundamental finance side, what other courses I need to take, and what other social networking events I need to attend. So he gave me some advice. He told me, like, don't be afraid of taking more MBA courses, and just grab the right courses that can help you set foundation for your future career. So in the second semester, I didn't do as many of my classmates do, like choose 3 or 4 PhD courses. Instead, in the second semester, I started to take 2 MBA courses, like the capital markets and investments, also the mergers and acquisitions course, which I know is quite fundamental and quite crucial for applying for a fundamental finance job. So during that courses, I started to do presentations. We built up team with the MBA students, and it was during those hours, those working hours, preparing for the presentation, that we built a friendship and we made connection to each other. Also, I actively reach out to the professors that who work in the who has full-time work experience in the private equity and mergers and acquisition field before. I talked to them and trying to know the current trend of this industry. So during those courses, I finally figured out my true passion, and that helped me find the internship back in China. And also when I get back to New York, when I found a job in the capital markets team in city, I find it so easy for me to connect to relate my curricular experiences to the job descriptions that city provided required for the current role. So this is one thing I want to mention here, that as Melina said, that this program is heavily quantitative focused, but doesn't mean that if you want to pursue the other career path, you just follow your heart. Yeah.
That's great. And, you know, Raphael can speak a little bit more about his own, I wouldn't say jumping around, but going from investment banking post-undergraduate into an internship at Morgan Stanley into a Google Analytics. Raphael, what is the exact title you hold at Google?
A machine learning engineer.
Machine learning engineer, which is a very technical job. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, how did you approach your professional goals during the program? And tell me a little bit about your path between those 3 specific roles. But please, it would be interesting to hear actually how you got your Morgan Stanley internship.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. So when I first got here, I was like overwhelmed with like all the possibilities and everything you have to do. Like the first year for me was very hard because I was not used to the US timeline. So like you get here in August and you were interviewing in September and October for like a July position. So yeah, it was a lot to do, like PhD classes, recruiting. And I remember that was like, yeah, it was very sometimes tough to see clearly what I should focus on. So if any of you like, you know, going through that right now, I think it's totally okay. That's how it is. But eventually you will. And for me, in the beginning, I decided, since I've been always technical, I like did computer engineering undergrad, worked with like software engineering before. I came to Columbia. I wanted to do like a finance job, you know, like 100% finance job, have the experience, go through it, which is why I did investment banking, my summer internship. So worked with M&A, it was pretty cool. I liked it, but I realized then that I actually preferred more technical jobs. So I went back to looking for, you know, more quantitative and like programming related jobs.
Sorry, Rafael, just to interrupt, that M&A internship was at Morgan Stanley, correct?
No, that was in Brazil in an investment group. Yeah.
Okay.
When I came back from the summer internship, that's when I looked for other internships that were more quantitative. And then Morgan Stanley had this position opened. But the funny thing about this story is how I found it. So basically, when I came back from my second year, I wanted to do an internship, and then I started looking on my LinkedIn. Like I started looking for Brazilians that were working in like the big banks, like doing cool stuff. And I found this person who was also Brazilian at Morgan Stanley, and he worked with AI and machine learning in the risk department with pretty cool projects. Then I just sent him a message, asked for a coffee chat. And then I went, we met near Times Square at a cafe, and then we just talked. And then, in the talk, it's kind of fun because he liked my experience, and he said, "Hey, we're basically looking for someone right now. We're having a hard time finding someone that knows finance and has experience with AI and machine learning. Would you want to interview?" So he invited me to interview, send me like the link and whatnot on the website. I applied, went through the interviews. You guys know, like it's a lot of interviews. I interviewed with all of their vice presidents, then with him again, took a programming challenge, then MDs and all that. And then I got the offer ultimately. It was pretty cool because I would never have known about this offer if I didn't first place message this person and had a coffee chat. So don't underestimate reaching out to people. Many opportunities are easier to find when they're referred by someone that has the information, right? Rather than just Googling it. So yeah, then I went to Morgan Stanley for 6 months, and it was pretty cool. That was my second year. And the job there was basically developing like models with machine learning. And the idea was to benchmark their current models with like AI assisted models and see like which one performed best. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so that's how I got it. So like try to leverage your network with like however you can. I used my Colombia stamp and my Brazilian stamp, and it's great to make connections in New York like this, because you find many people with these kind of attributes. So it's pretty nice.
Thank you, Rafael, for sharing. And I would say, all of you coming from different cultures, there are different cultural standards and norms. And in Brazilian culture, it's a culture focused on connectivity, and it's very social. And I know that in other cultures, it may not be as natural to reach out and connect just based on your nationality or just based on your interests, personal, social, professional. But here in the US, people really do enjoy connecting based on other things outside of their professional interests. It's refreshing for people who have been in your shoes, who are now seasoned professionals, to see students like you who are in their background and connect and mentor and talk. And so I actually just had a meeting with one of you guys. I won't say who it is because I won't put him on the spot, but we had a meeting discussing how to approach alumni coffee chats last week. And then he did his first alumni coffee chat the next day and got a job offer. So I encouraged him. I gave him some American, words of advice toward the American way of reaching out and asking questions in alumni coffee chats and professional coffee chats. And some of it was he expected, and some of it was kind of like, oh, okay, I didn't know I could do that, or I could ask those things. So do recognize that each of you as individuals will have your own unique way of reaching out to people. Leverage your background, leverage your culture, leverage your interests. And at the end of the day, you're each human beings trying to connect with another human being. And even though the coffee chat may or may not lead to a job, that's not the point of the coffee chat. The point is to develop your network. That coffee chat could be valuable to you in a couple of years. And even in every interview you do, the best case scenario is that you've created a strong addition to your professional network. Okay, so Linda, tell me a little bit about how you approached your professional goals during the program. You already touched upon meeting with professors, taking MBA courses, But how did you actually go about recruiting?
So I'll talk more about get the job offer at City. So in my last semester, I tend to send the messages in LinkedIn. I send a lot of LinkedIn messages, like 30, 40 messages per day. And I have to say it's a number game that you don't expect they reply often. Like I think the reply rate is only 1/10. So you have to set the right anticipation for this. And also, like I usually go with like, hey, the name of the person I'm interested in, and I do with a very brief introduction about myself, saying, okay, I'm Linda Yang. I'm come from Columbia Business School, and I'm currently in a master program, financial economics. I came across your profile. I see like you work in maybe City capital markets team. I found your work experience very attracts me very much, and I'm just wondering if I can have a coffee chat. So this is how I usually go with the messages. Also, for some of the person, like they doesn't accept the invitation, I will try to guess their work emails. Like usually the work emails goes with the first name, dot last name, and the company's name.com. So I sometimes I randomly send a bunch of emails to the person, to the people I'm interested in. And I think that is one way. And usually I prefer, like if their work location is not very far away from Columbia, I always prefer going like near their company and have a face-to-face coffee chat. Because I always believe that if you can like talk to someone in person, that may increase your success rate, because you can demonstrate yourself like better than just a plain message or plain emails. And also, I think for me, since I originally come from China, and I know that for many Chinese professionals, they tend to use WeChat. So if I came across a person that I really want to know him, so I would usually like trying to ask my friends around me to say like, if you know this person, if so, I would ask them to refer me by WeChat, because that is an app that the Chinese community feel more close to each other, and I really want to like impress them by doing this. But at the same time, I don't set limitations. I'm totally fine like with the sending messages to the professionals that is local in the States or from other countries. I think it just doesn't matter. And I think during the coffee chats, I usually go with some chit chat, because I think like people always want to hear stories. So when we greet each other saying like, how are you, how's your weekend? I always do not just simply answer by, okay, that's good, and then just jump to the professional topics. Instead, I will generally, I really share what I did over the weekend. Let's say like, oh, I did the indoor climbing last weekend and it was quite fun. I like the top rope. So that kind of just let the other person know what I'm truly, so what I truly am. Also, I recall that in the interview with my manager at City, I accidentally found that we are both music fans. We both interested in the jazz bar. So after the interview, I write her an email, like recommend some jazz bars I really like. And she said, I really appreciate it. So I think that's also one of the perks that helped me got this job. So I really recommend that when you're doing the interview in the coffee chat, you do not always talk about the jobs. Talk more about you, talk more about your stories. That will impress people.
I appreciate you sharing that, Linda. That was similar advice to what I gave one of the MSFE students, is that at the end of the day, you're two people, and the goal of the chat or the meeting or the interview at the end of the day is to establish a connection and to establish trust between one another. And even if deep into the professional world, trust is established through, honest and reputable deal making and transactions, but it's also established outside of the office or outside of professional conversations where you are relating to one another, whether it has to do with your community, your children, your interests, if you can't, everybody who sits in front of you at the end of the day, let's say I'm interviewing you guys, I know everyone is qualified, but it's about me assessing your credibility and your passion and your commitment to your life and your professional endeavors. And that is helpful. It's helpful to me or someone who's speaking with you to see who you are as a person. It's also what you remember. So I think that's great advice. And so pivoting a little bit, what, now that you're a couple of years, you're two-ish years into your careers post MSFE, what is different than what you expected during your master's program? And based on what is different or what has maybe surprised you a little, what advice would you give the students?
Cool. Yeah, that's a hard question. Honestly, I didn't know much like what to expect as I was graduating. I remember when I was like close to the end of my graduation, I was like in my second year, I was like still deciding whether I was going to industry or if I was like applying for a PhD program, for example. I had those two paths as like possibilities, and I decided to go to industry ultimately. But I think one thing that changed right now is that, at least for me, that's like my experience. I feel like after you go to industry and you find a job and you kind of like it, it's hard to go back. So like, I don't know, I feel like I would not apply right now for the PhD program, maybe further down the path. Also, I have friends that had like the opposite experience. They went to work, they kind of liked it, but they'd rather go back to academia and, commit to the 5-year course of study. So I think, yeah, so I think that's something that may change, after you graduate. Having the industry experience is like, can be very important to take informed decisions on whether we want to stay or whether we want to go back. Like Linda, for instance, just mentioned that she came straight from undergrad. So I think like industry experience is pretty important in that sense. Yeah, so I think that's like one thing that I see that may have changed in my view. Apart from that, everything else pretty much like what I thought. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but like working in New York, I had the impression that would be amazing. And I really like New York. So working here, living here, it's like very nice. I remember doing the MSFE, life was different. I spent a lot of time at, the library, at Watson, like, doing stuff. And then after graduate, I feel like I have more free time or like freedom to actually know the city, go around and do stuff. So yeah, I feel like I have a different experience with the city right now, and it's good. So it's one thing that changed for the good, for the better. Yeah, but I think like I feel like this is like my view.
And of course, we're operating in a slightly different environment right now with a lot of the work, the internships being performed remotely. If either of you have any thoughts or comments about how the transition from full-time in-person work to either hybrid or remote work, can you talk a little bit about how that's affected you guys personally and professionally, and any advice for the students?
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, for me, like it was pretty hard in the beginning going for remote. So I started Google in July, and then like in March, we went for remote. And yeah, that was a tough time because like I like working with your coworkers, it's something very like valuable, especially when you were like starting a company. And the ramp up at Google is like take some time because a lot to learn in the beginning. So yeah, so that was like intense to, adjust to the new regime. But then eventually I think I figure out, how to do it. And today I feel like I learned like I can easily stay full remote, hybrid, or full at the office. Google actually asked us what we wanted. So we filled forms, on our preferences. I personally picked staying home Friday and Monday and coming to the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And that's actually what was approved. So that's like what we're looking into right now, going like for hybrid model. But it's nice that companies have like, I think, opened their minds to the full remote possibility, right? So here, for instance, you can apply to go full remote, work from anywhere in the country, and it's a pretty standard process. You just need to find a team that like is okay with going for remote. Some teams are not, especially like hardware teams that you need to be at the lab, you know, like doing stuff like that. But some others are more flexible. And yeah, so people have more like flexibility to choose now. Yeah, and at the end, like today, I feel like I work the same at both, but I personally have been coming to the office every day for the past like 2 weeks. It's voluntary, we don't need to, but I've been coming because I miss like, you know, living in the city, like going back and forth, you know, seeing people and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, so for me, currently I'm doing, our team is doing the hybrid, similar to Rafael. So I came back to office Tuesday, Wednesday a week, and the rest of the days I just work at home. So currently I'm staying at home. So we started remotely working since last March, and last July we temporarily used the hybrid mode. But it just lasted for 1 month because we found the virus is so severe that the company just couldn't risk the health of their employees. So I highly appreciate that the city is very supportive. And I think things are quite different when we work at home. So first of all, although we have the Zoom meeting, but sometimes it's just some of the employees, they just do not prefer opening their videos. So it's kind of weird that you are opening your video and you're just talking to someone with a name tag on it. So it's quite hard at first, but later on our team kind of held a monthly event, virtual event. So we like some of our colleagues who have their pads, they kind of show their pads in the Zoom meeting. And we, after 1 hour session talking about work, we'll always save 10 minutes at the end of each work, at the end of each monthly meeting, share about each one's personal life, like what's going on recently, so that we feel we are connected and we are a team. Also, I think the other thing, I learned from one of the MBA student who is rotating our program is, she told me she's actively inviting people for virtual coffee chats, like via Zoom. So after that, I was inspired by that. And I started to invite people, not only in our team, but also in the big floor, to like a 30 or 15 minutes coffee chat. That helped me learn more about their functions, their desk. Also, I happen to like find a team that the job they do attracts me very much. They are in the rates portfolio management team in under the city treasury investment team. So in this summer, it happened, my manager told me in our big team, there is a cross-training program. And the portfolio management team, they are also participating in it. So, and I know that it's very popular. So I reached out to the people that I once had the coffee chat with and told her that I'm very interested in your team. So I would like to apply for the cross training at your team this summer. How about it? And she said, yes, why not? So she recommended to the boss, and later they agreed to let me join their team for this summer. And I think that even though you cannot like do the coffee chats face to face, you still have a lot of alternative ways to keep connection to people. And the other challenge, I think, is work hours. So I'm not sure if in the tech companies, but at least for the finance industries, we tend to work longer when we work remotely. Like on Tuesday and Wednesday, I usually log off at before 6 p.m. But in the other days, I usually log off after 8 p.m. because when I'm like work at home, I have to make sure that my manager aware that I'm always working. So let's say if at office, sometimes I'll just go downstairs and grab coffee with my colleagues, and my manager know that I'm in the office, so it's okay that I don't respond to her message like 30 minutes. But if I'm working at home, first of all, I need to be responsive within 5 minutes every time she messages me. So I think it's kind of under high pressure. It's very stressful because you like sometimes you just want to go downstairs for a walk or you just want to cook, but you have to make your manager know that you are at the desk. Whenever you are away at your desk for 10 minutes, you let your manager know. So I think that's one thing, and it's quite challenging to me. And the other thing is, since my desk is a quite collaborative team, a lot of work we do highly depend on the work provided by other teams. And now since we work remotely, sometimes it's getting challenging, it's getting difficult for us to follow up on the work. And that is one of the reasons to keep us working so long. So I think these are one of these challenges that I've met during last year, but thankfully, because currently we're doing the hybrid and there are a lot of employees coming back to office. So I think things are getting better, but you just need to be prepared if you are like doing a remote internship, that you have to make sure your manager know you are hardworking and you have to present that, you have to prove that.
Great, thank you both for sharing. There definitely are pros and cons to working remotely, definitely. And maybe, you know, I can ask Sandy to talk about this a little bit later, but I am curious personally to see in the recruiting trends if there are more opportunities to work for companies based on the West Coast, companies based in Europe, companies based in any part of the US, but also maintain your home base in New York and work remotely. I'm curious if there are any different trends emerging from the remote work environment where companies are looking to hire very highly qualified candidates like yourselves, but they don't mind if you're based in New York and then are remoting into different offices for tech companies on the West Coast, or financial services based in Boston, for example. So I don't mean to put Sandy on the spot, but maybe we can talk about that a little later. So that, in all honesty, that concludes my part of my Q&A to Raphael and Linda. So I really want to make this interactive between all of you. And I did see a question in the chat from Dexter, which I'm happy to relay, but at this point, I'd really like all of you guys to feel free to ask questions directly to Raphael and Linda and have an interactive dialogue. And I may have some follow-on questions or comments, but I will open it up really to that segment, and we will stay here until 1:30-ish. So, you know, I know that you guys have class at 2. But first, I'll just relay Dexter's question, which is to both of you. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 7 years? How does the work you're doing now, I guess the bigger question is how does the work you're doing now fit into the big picture? So.
Cool. All right, good question. Yeah, so starting with the easier one, which is how my work changed. I feel like responsibilities definitely changed. So right now I'm taking like more challenging tasks, harder to solve, that takes longer. And I'm increasingly getting more like leadership responsibilities compared to 1 year ago. So like when I first started, and I think that's true like across industries, like you were basically a task cruncher. You know, like managers and more experienced people will like split a work into tasks or, you know, like some functions that you need to do, and you just address them. And then as you grow, you start being the one that actually designs the solutions and, you know, delegates and stuff like that. So at least that's my experience. That's how it's been. I feel like I'm getting more responsibilities, and that's pretty exciting. And where do I see myself in the future? Very nice question. Really hard to predict. I'm not sure if, like, I mean, if I write down what I think will happen, I'm not sure if that will happen, but I feel like in 5 to 7 years, I will be like an entrepreneur. I'll have my company, and it will be like in finance and the technology area, like so a fintech kind of company. Which joins like both of my, backgrounds, like computer science and financial economics. And that's something I'm really passionate about. Many problems to be solved in the area. So that's what I would guess that will happen with me. But who knows, right?
Well, only you know. I mean, once you set a goal, once you have a dream, you set a goal, and then you create intermediary goals, and then you set a timeline and action plan, and then it actually becomes informative to all of your decisions on a day-to-day, month-to-month, and year-to-year basis. So even though you're never too young to dream, but you should always take those dreams and put them into actionable goals, because that is how you will subconsciously and consciously make decisions today based on where you see yourself in 5 to 7 years or 10 or 15 years. And culturally in the US, we're very like individualistic, goal-oriented. You are the owner of your destiny. And that is, I just think that is true. And it is not an abstract concept. So I like, Raphael, that you have goals of being an entrepreneur, even though you don't know necessarily the business idea or exactly where you'll end up. Career paths don't have to be linear. That is something that the business school, I think, is wonderful at preparing you for. You get this interesting chicken and egg cycle where though the firms that are recruiting at the business school have a defined career path and defined recruiting process typically. With MSFE program, you have a unique background and skill set that puts you in a different type of category from the MBAs, where you have a quantitative background. And given that background, you have different and unique opportunities, but you can still zigzag. There is no like one right way to get to where you want to be. And so you can be open-minded. But what I wanted to say was, Linda, I actually wanted to pose this question to you because I went in my first 5 years into a career in capital markets, and then I chose to do other things. So I'm personally interested in hearing about how this fits into your longer term vision.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I want to do a brief introduction about my daily work. So we're in the insurance side. We raise long-term debt on top of city. So we talk a lot to the decent bankers across the street and from different countries. Also, my daily job includes the liability management analysis, which is doing to decide whether it's economic efficient for the company to repurchase its outstanding bonds. So that also requires you to have a good understanding of the bond accounting and the current market. So compared to 1 year I was doing, I think for now, my manager has put me on more presentation tasks. Like previously, I was more on the execution side because we are a very lean team. There are only 4 people in my team and I'm the most junior person. So I'm like always doing the execution work. But starting from this year, she kind of talked about my future career path. And she kind of asked me to talk more like in our group meetings with the bankers from the other banks. It was her that previously talked to the bankers and asked questions. And now she encouraged me to ask questions because that showed that I'm really participating in it. And also I'm starting from the perspective of city. Also, I think last year, because I was new to the team, so it's like my manager and a lot of other teams, they do the teaching to me. But for starting from this year, I'm the person give back to the new associates and the new analysts that's their rotation in our work. So the thing I learned is they're like for different person, they just have different ways. They have to prefer different ways of getting the teaching. So for example, there was one FMA, she prefers me to give her the teaching like step by step, make sure she understands everything because she just doesn't want to mess it up. But for the other one, she wanted to have the whole picture first before she dig into the details. She wanted to know like, why do we need to gather all the information about city and money center peers current debt issuance? What is this for? What is this for our team? So I just need to explain to her first, make sure she feels comfortable about this, and and then we jump into the details. So I think during the teach-in session, I also learned how to put myself in the other one's shoes to make sure that the team functions well and make sure they feel like they are also part of the team. And heading to my 5 to 7 year plan, I would say I want to do in the investor side, because currently I'm the issuer side. And I think it's good to be in the issuer side because you have many private information. You get to know that based on what criteria your company wants to issue the bonds and in which currencies. So this is very good. But also I want to stand in the other side to say like how the investors pick up their invested portfolio, how they pick up whether we need to short or long cities bonds or other companies bonds based on what, based on the current market situation. So this is what I want to go ahead in the future.
Thank you both for lending your perspective on that. And Linda, you know, it's really nice to hear about how passionate you are about training and mentoring those who are joining your team, and also how proactive you are about finding opportunities within Citi. And I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you and highlight that part of the reason why interesting opportunities come your way is when you raise your hand and say, I'm open to do this. I'd like to explore this. Could I have a chat about this? I'm interested in X, Y, and Z outside of my core function. And it's really powerful because it shows that you have a broader set of interests. You're not just doing what you're told to do. And it shows a deep intellectual and professional curiosity. And it's really great. You know, the first 6 months, the first 12 months, you're really just trying to get a hang of what you're doing and trying to go up the learning curve into just being steady state, or at least up the initial learning curve into becoming steady state in your professional capacity. But it is important that, you know, I really appreciate you, Linda, talking about all the opportunities that you're seeking within Citi and the ways that you're looking to leverage your experience to mentor others, because that is actually how you can stand out as a person and a professional, that you're passionate enough to teach others and you're interested enough to raise your hand for new opportunities. And I think that's a great example for everybody here. And we have received a few questions about the timeline of recruiting. Those questions should be directed toward the CMC because the timeline of recruiting is, it's different for different types of opportunities and roles. So please reach out to Sandy at the CMC about those questions. But who has a question? Unmute yourself and ask a question.
I think Max he posed a question in the chat up above.
Okay, so yes, the question is, Linda, what drew you to private equity?
So thanks, Max, for your question. I think it came into my mind since in my second semester. Actually, the PE industry is quite hot and popular in China. And since I wanted to, like at that time period, I wanted to go back to China. So I talked to a lot of my friends back in China and let them like just teach me like the industries that's thriving in China. And most of my friends told me, okay, it's like the investment banking and private equity side. So that's how I learned this. So I took a lot of courses and I started to talk to people about this field. And I feel like the more I know about this industry, the more I'm interested in it, because I think it's a very good opportunities for young professionals, because you can have the opportunities to get to know a bunch of companies and industries, and you get to meet the CEOs, the CFOs when in early of your careers, and I think that's a very good point of it. Also, I think it's just give me a sense of fulfillment to say that if our company invest in a company, invest in a startup, and we're trying to expand its business in terms of no matter in its location or in terms of its business lines, we made direct impact on the company. And I think that's the thing that making me getting excited. But I have to say that I didn't have full-time work experience in the private equity side. I just have a bunch of internships, so I cannot say for sure. If you really want to know about this, my recommendation is you just go to LinkedIn, just to message people and set up some coffee chats with them. So that was how I did when I was in master program.
And one thing I would add to what Linda just mentioned is that from experience, the private equity industry heavily recruits from investment banking. And they really want people with investment banking backgrounds, transaction backgrounds, valuation backgrounds. And so it is a very tightly knit industry that doesn't hire as opportunistically as other industries. And they're typically a counterparty to many, 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 many M&A transactions. So they look at their recruiting pool. Even for the MBAs, it's a very difficult and very tight recruiting pool. So it's not something where you can have a coffee chat and then get a job offer. It is much more specific and specialized from the private equity. Like if I were an MD or a partner at a private equity firm, it's more specialized and it's definitely, okay. Okay. So sorry, I'm just reading mid chat as I'm speaking. They wanted to ask about China private equity as well. Not just the interest in private equity in general, but also in the private equity landscape in China, which I can't speak to. So that's probably a question for you, Linda.
Yeah, sure. So first, I want to talk about this from the perspective of recruiting. So I think the recruiting method is quite different from China and the US. Just I totally agree with Melina. I think it's a highly competitive industry in the States. Like the PE firms, they usually hire associates or junior analysts from the sales side. So if you do not have full-time experience in the M&A before, it's almost impossible for you to jump into this industry, I have to say. But for China, I think it depends on like which tier of the PE firms you're applying for. So if you're applying for a top tier PE, sometimes they will hire MBA students from prestigious business program, let's say for Columbia Business School, but also they tend to hire some freshmen from master programs. So that's one of the different in China and the States. So if you really want to go to China, look for the opportunities, I would say it's more accessible for you to find opportunities there than in the States.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question of that. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you did an internship in a China private equity firm. Yeah, when did you apply for it? The timeline of that? Yeah, that's what.
Sure. So I applied for it at the middle of my second semester. I talked to some of my friends who did the internships in their in City Capital before, so they referred my resume to the VP, and then we had a 30 minutes phone call, and that it was. The 30 minutes phone call is kind of a mixture of the behavioral and technical, and they asked me some of the deals I've worked before to make sure that I at least have a basic understanding of this industry. And later, it was in May, at the end of May, after my final examinations, I fly back to China, and I did a 3-hour case interview. So they gave me a company's material, which is about 100 pages, and they asked me to rate that case, and then they asked me to pull some slides, maybe 4 to 5 pages, talking about the companies and its investment thesis, and also to give my own opinion, like whether or not we need to invest in the company. And after that, I was required to give a 30 minutes presentation in front of 4 associates, and they asked some follow-up questions. So it's kind of only 2 rounds of interviews, but the second round is quite heavy, quite intensive. So that's what I went through for the recruiting.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very clear.
So Raphael and Linda, Did both of you guys have experience with on-demand recruiting where it was really about just-in-time recruiting? And did you also have experience with more structured recruiting? If you could lend any perspective on that.
Yeah, like recruiting for me was usually, yeah, a more structured, like structured process. In general, just the same thing, like applying online and, going through all the steps, which are very like well-defined processes. One thing that I found that helped a lot in the recruiting process was to actually connect to people before applying, actually reaching out to, hiring managers or HR and, letting them know who you are beforehand. And that makes a huge difference. I feel like today, many, like, it's just so easy to apply, right, online. And these companies get tons of resumes all at once. And I'm not sure if 100% of the times there is actually a human being reading your CVs. I feel like machines do a lot of work today, and depending on how, you wrote stuff or keywords, or if the PDF is not readable, maybe your application is not even reviewed, right? So when you reach out, I feel like you increase a lot the chances that a human being will actually get your CV and read it and, give you a shot at on-site or whatever next phases in the process. So I would recommend doing that. I myself also had, I knew people that worked in multinational companies, and I did my exchange program in Europe, so I had some contacts in Europe. I'm from Brazil. I knew the people here too, and some of these people actually worked with me before, and they referred me to some jobs. That also helps a lot. The reference, in my experience, actually helps you assures that a human being will review your application, right, and not a computer. And that is very nice, because if you are in the MSFE, that means you have a very nice resume by definition, right? And you're building it and you're improving it every month that passes, every class you take. So try to focus on that, having human beings reviewing your application. Try to avoid automatic processes. That helps a lot. And yeah, I guess those are my advices.
I'm sorry, Linda, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, again, in summary, it sounds like the power of networking is extremely powerful. And the power of the human connection is such that you get at least referred, either it's a character referral or it's a professional referral, or it's at least a stamp of, I have met this person and they seem credible. And so that is, when I think, Linda, you mentioned earlier, it's like the law of large numbers, or it's a numbers game. If you send out 50 in-mails on LinkedIn, you may get 10 responses, or you may get 5 responses. I mean, it is about putting yourself out there. So anyways, I'm sorry, Linda, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. So I just want to say, since I think my recruiting experience is kind of unique. So I didn't go for a structured timeline, because for my summer intern, it is for a Chinese fee. I don't think it helps a lot for the students want to apply jobs here. But for my job at City, it actually was the lateral hiring. It wasn't for the master students actually. So I heard the opportunity from alumni event, and because we had a good chat, so he kind of recommended me to the MD, and I happened to say that the MD also came from Columbia Business School. So we had a chat. But after I got the job, I talked to some of the MBA students who went through the financial management associate program, a more structured recruiting program, and share our recruiting process. I found that it's kind of similar. So I hope that this could help you in some way. So first of all, I talked to the MD for 50 minutes. It's also kind of a mixture of personal and technical. So personal, since he also came from Columbia, so we talked about some of the courses and even the broader libraries. Also for the technical, since I think they asked me very basic about the bond, like what will the price of the bond go if the interest rate goes up. It's very basic, but still they ask you this kind of questions to make sure that you know this. And then I talked to 3 associates. Actually, they're from the DCM side, the capital market side, because they want to make sure that the sales side feel good about the person they're hiring, because we work very closely. After that, I talked to 2 VPs, 1 SVPs, and then I talked to not only the director of my team, but also the director of other team. And I happen to find that, and there is 1 director also is my alumni. And the other thing I want to point out is when you talk about when you're doing an interview, I understand that everyone wants to like perform the best of themselves, but you need to make sure once you talk about something, you really need to nail at it. So I remember there was 1 director, he majored in computer science when he was an undergraduate. And I mentioned that our program is a very special one that provide us PhD courses of the programming. So he wanted to test if I can really program. And then I told him, I told him like, oh, I bring my computer here. So let me show you the codes I wrote before. And I couldn't believe that he did so. Like he did check my codes to make sure that I'm not telling him the lie. I'm not like bragging myself. So that's the thing I want to mention here, that you really need to make sure everything you talk about yourself is true. Yeah.
That's fantastic advice. I want to just jump in. Hi, everyone. It's Sandy from CMC. So nice to see our alumni coming back and sharing such great advice. I have a question. I know a lot of students come to me and they ask me about the particulars of reaching out. They're very nervous to network with strangers, for example. So I have a question. If you guys have any do's and don'ts, maybe that you've experienced, maybe people who have reached out to you, if you've, someone reached out to you and did something that they shouldn't have done and you never wrote back to them, if you could share any examples maybe of, do this, but don't do this. Just.
Sure. Yeah, I think I have some insights on that. I feel like connecting to people is important, but I feel like there's a difference between connecting and like asking for a job, right? Or something like that. So I would like, if you were to reach out to someone in the industry, I would not go about say, hey, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a student. I'm looking for an internship. Here's my resume. That's not connecting, right? That's just like asking for a job. I feel like the right way to approach like networking, especially in the recruiting scope, is to just talk to a person, understand what they're looking for, what tips can they give, understand like put them in a position where they're mentoring you, right? And I feel like people are more willing to help you if they feel like a mentor, rather than if they don't know you and you're asking for something. And results can be amazing, right? I like something I've spoken to Sandra in the past. I reached out to people in some hedge funds that I liked before. So I remember I connected to 2 people from 2 Sigma and 1 from Citadel. And I actually got to visit the offices. Like they invited me there. We had lunch in the office. They showed me around. It's pretty cool, right? And that's not something, it was not a structured thing where like a class goes to visit a hedge fund. No, it was just 2 people that just badged me in and we just had lunch and they showed me around. And I'm pretty sure that would not have happened if I had just sent them my resume, right? Because that was not my goal. My goal was just to connect with these people. And I was not admitted to any of these hedge funds. I applied to them, didn't work out, but contacts are still there and we're still like, we're kind of friends today, even today. So yeah, so that's definitely a don't in my opinion. Like don't like ask or send a PDF. And the second thing that I would suggest is like establish like a human connection first. in a professional like second. I feel like that is the whole idea, you know, that's the key. Obviously it's going to be a professional relationship, but you know, it's two people connecting. So understand where the person came from, like say where you came from, like what your challenges are. Ask how you can, like, hey, so can I get like a 15 minutes call or something like that? And you can pose like your vulnerabilities, like, hey, I'm kind of struggling in this area. Do you think it's still okay to enter this industry? Stuff like that. I feel people appreciate that and they really tend to help you. So these are like some advices that really helped me when I was doing it. And I like right now am not like a senior person, but I right now receive some messages on my LinkedIn from like less experienced people or graduating students. And I feel the same thing. When people just approach me like with a PDF, I am much less willing to open it and to, you know, to answer back as when people just want to know who I am, what I do, and hey, how can I do that too? You know, it changes the whole idea of the conversation. So yeah, I feel like anyone that does that, like that is on the other side, will feel the same way. So yeah, it's my do's and don'ts.
Those are really great do's and don'ts. And then just to summarize what you said, Raphael, put yourself in the shoes of asking for mentorship and establishing someone in your network, as opposed to asking to meet with them as a means to an end of getting a job. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you show a little bit of your own personal path, a little bit of your own vulnerability, like they say, you know, you open the kimono a little bit, then they're also, if you take that first step, they're also going to be more willing to open themselves up and tell you a little bit more deeply about their path and who they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And at the end of the day, ask questions, have really, really, really good sets of questions prepared that aren't from a place of a methodical, like, I need to ask 5 questions so that I get these answers. No, ask open-ended questions and ask questions about their personal endeavors and path and their professional endeavors and path, because they're human first, professional second. I mean, at the end of the day, that really is what it is. And so I really like what you had to say, Raphael. I think that the conversations don't have to be transactional. They can be exploratory. And we have a great expression in the US, you want to be interesting and interested. So if you show the interested part first, the interesting comes later. I think it's easier. I mean, if you guys are all sitting here with a stranger, if you ask them a bunch of questions about themselves, they're automatically going to want to talk and share, and that creates connection. So I think that's great advice. Okay, so we're at 1:29 p.m. There's no, you know, fully hard stop, but I'll open it up to a few more questions, maybe 2 more questions if we'd like. You guys can write them in the chat. You can unmute yourself, nothing formal.
Hi, Melina. I just want to make another advice on network. So I think at the very beginning, I was quite afraid of networking to people because I have a misunderstanding. I always think when I'm having a networking coffee, I need to like be an expert on this field because I want to impress the person. But then I talked to some of my friends who are very skillful at this, and they told me the thing is really not about how you know about the industry. It's because it is because you do not know this industry that leads you to the person you are networking with. So you just prepare good questions and expect them to answer you. So I think that is one thing I want to point out here. And the other thing is, don't forget to follow up. So when I was doing the networking course, sometimes I found that for some of the people, I feel like we had a really good chat. It's just because their company didn't have any openings at that moment. So maybe after 1 month or a quarter, like in the Christmas or in the Thanksgiving, I'll just send them a follow-up chat and give them some updates about my current situation. So I tend to, I just recommend you to try your best to build a long-term relationship with the person you're networking with.
And to follow up on that, Linda, and I love that advice. And I actually have very specific ways of following up during specific time periods. There's a specific way to follow up during the holidays. There's a specific way to follow up or re-engage a conversation in the new year. There's a specific way to reach out intellectually. There's a specific way to reach out personally. There are a lot of strategies around that. But one thing I wanted to say was that when you're having these conversations, at the end of the day, have great open-ended questions prepared, but don't come from a place of ignorance. You know, if you're meeting with somebody in the private equity industry, read a couple of white papers by experts on the private equity industry so that you understand, like an inverted pyramid, you understand like the macro themes going on so that you have context for some of the questions you're asking. Because again, you want to come from an educated perspective, but an exploratory perspective. If you come in blind, it's obvious that you're coming in blind, and that never really works. So at the end of the day, you all have a lot to offer. But you're at this point where you're in an inflection at a point of change and you want others' advice and perspective, but you are valuable resources. So always also never be afraid to say, if there's any way I can be helpful to you, never hesitate to let me know, or please feel free to reach out if I can ever be a helpful resource to you. It is reciprocal. Even if you are junior and they are senior, please make sure that you put yourself out there as a reciprocal resource for them. So, okay, one last question, or are we going to wrap up? Actually, why don't I wrap up? If we have another question, I will take another question.
Maybe I'll just add, I mean, you guys have been providing us with so much advice, maybe just to, you know, put you guys back in our shoes. What if you guys did speak with alumni back when you were in the program? Like, was there one piece of advice that you were given that you feel like you really followed and had a big impact on what you guys did afterwards? I know it's taking you guys back sometime.
Well, Dexter, you actually stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, if there's one piece of advice to give the students, or one piece of advice that affected you the most, what would it be, or what was it? So we're gonna end on that mutual question. Thanks, Dexter.
Perfect. Thanks, Dexter. Yeah, it's hard to like name one advice that changes like everything, but I feel like for me, the impacting ones were those that I mentioned. Like in like a one-liner is use your Columbia resources at most and do your recruiting networking thing, like reach out to people. Like at the end of the day, you gotta really use people. Like the thing is, after you graduate, suppose right now you want to meet like 15 people in, I don't know, the private equity industry. It's hard to do that, but it's so easy to do that when you're a student at Columbia Business School, right? So this is really a unique time of your life, you know. Getting to know people is so easy right now, and the context remain forever. So this is like the key advice that I think I would give. It like includes a lot of small advices, but you know, one-liner is like really take advantage of the network you have right now.
So I also think the same. It's really hard to like summarize in one piece, but I would say just do your homework before you ask someone for help. You just make sure you know the basics. You do not ask him the questions. You can simply Google online. That show that you do your homework and you have a really insight about this. And the other thing is, don't think it's chit chat is not important. Chit chat is sometimes more important than you imagine. I think for the people that I did networking with, and also I had follow up with this, it's always the ones that we had a good chit chat and we share our stories that they offer, and finally in turnout they offered to help me. They offered to help me to find if there are any openings at their companies. So I feel like people are really interested in hearing your own stories than in just talking about the professional topics, and that's what works on me. So yeah, that's one of the other advice I would give.
Well, thank you both for those very good pieces of advice. I will add a kind of like, I don't know, I would say like a secondary message to what you just said, Linda, which is that people remember stories, and chit chat, it's not just chit chat, it's the personal connection first. It's saying, I'm interested in you as a person, you're interested in me as a person. And obviously we're here for professional reasons, but what's fulfilling and interesting is to get to know one another as individuals. And in between stories and chit chat is the really critical skill of listening. You may have your questions prepared, you may have the white papers memorized, you may have examples created with beginnings, middles, and ends to talk about your skill sets, et cetera. You may have all of that prepared in your toolkit, but at the end of the day, you need to listen to the person that you're sitting with and forget whatever, have what you need for preparation, but forget about what's inside your own head and listen. Because I've sat across many candidates, many individuals across my time in capital markets and M&A, where people are just talking because it's rehearsed and asking questions because they're prepared, but they just go from question to question to question, or answer to answer to answer. And that's not human. Listen, be interested. Like, you're going to learn. You're approaching these meetings. I think Rafa or Linda, you mentioned Raphael, you're approaching them as mentors, as people who can be important in your learning process and in your networking process. And so you're going to concentrate on developing really meaningful, marketable, edgy skill sets in quantitative finance, in data science, in analysis, in programming, in the whole synthesis of those skill sets, which is unique. But listen to the person who you're having conversations with. And when you're writing for outreach, don't write as a completely self-serving exercise. Write because you're interested in learning about the person that you're writing to. I love all of these pieces of advice. So I'm so thankful, Raphael and Linda, for your time today. And I'm really thankful to have such a great audience. Again, I'm continuously inspired by everyone I speak with in the program and exiting the program. I guess, Linda and Raphael, we can wrap that up. And I hope that we can stay in touch. And are you okay if the students have further questions? Are you okay sharing information? What's your point of view?
Yes, yeah. Feel free to reach out. My LinkedIn is my name. It's Rafael Ferreira. I can send my LinkedIn URL here. Oh, I see some people already connected to me. Nice. Yeah, and yeah, feel free to reach out. I like to be very accessible, and I really appreciate the space you guys have given here. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah, whenever you need, feel free to reach out. There you go.
Yeah.
And Dexter, and so Linda, if somebody wants to contact you, what's the best way?
Oh, also by LinkedIn. Yeah,
Okay.
my LinkedIn profile is also my name. Yeah.
And by the way, Raphael and Linda aren't the oracles. They don't have the answers to every question on the planet. They are just representative of you 2 years out. Okay, so they were in your shoes 2 years ago, and so use your resources. They are great. Utilize the Career Management Center for really like kind of tactical and I would say strategic approaches to recruiting. Utilize myself and Harry for, I would say you can utilize me for a little bit of the deeper dive on the coaching aspect. I will really help you peel back the layers of conversation, of productive networking, of productive interviewing, of your elevator pitch, of how to represent yourself, of how to communicate. Harry has deep industry knowledge and can help you with all of the same things. And so you have a great team here at your disposal. And I'm so thankful that everyone was here today. And I'll just wrap it up and say, have a wonderful week to everybody.
Cool. Thanks you guys. Have a wonderful week as well. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care. See you on campus.
Bye.
Bye-bye.